Okay, hi, I'm Steve Wyss, part of the Nordic Football Podcast and the Eliteserien expert. I promised a video on some fantasy advice, so here we are. Eliteserien fantasy. I'm going to start with goalkeepers and some last year's points tallies of goalkeepers is very interesting. If we look at the keepers now, Andre Hansen, he's the top dog in this department. His points tally is way above anyone else. And the main reason for that is because he keeps so many clean sheets at Rosenborg. You look at his history, 12 clean sheets. They only conceded 23 goals when he was in between the sticks. He makes a surprisingly high number of saves for a team that was winning the league. That might come down, actually, if, or it might. Certainly don't think it's going to go up. Let's just say that. And he will always be getting a few bonus points, even though he's a goalkeeper. 7 million price tag is quite a lot, but he is the top dog. He will score the most points at all goalkeepers this year. I'm fairly sure of that. But I don't think it's going to be as many as 135. It might be down towards sort of the 115, 120 mark for Hansen this year. So you got to decide, is it worth paying the extra premium when you can maybe look at getting a goalkeeper for, say, 100 points or 110 points who's cheaper? And one of those options may well be Sean McDermott from Christiansen. He's one of my keepers I've selected. And, look at his stats last year, just 6 clean sheets, as opposed to Hansen, who had double that. He makes a lot of saves in matches sometimes, 17 bonus points, so he catches the eye, because a lot of his saves are reflex. And, a lot of people look at those sort of saves and think, wow, yeah. So he will rack up bonus points. I think you can get a similar amount of points tally again, maybe 110. Maybe there's even room to improve on that if Christiansen have a really good defence this year at times. But they will keep clean sheets against some of the crap teams. So I think McDermott for 2 million cheaper. I'm not saying he's going to get more points than Hansen, but I think he's going to get a similar amount, maybe 10 less over the season, which, in terms of the money there is not too bad. And my other keeper is Friedrich at Buda Glimt. Now, this keeper is an interesting one. Last year, his stats are nothing remarkable, but I think he can improve on that. I don't think they're going to concede masses of goals. They're not the sort of side that's going to get beaten 5 or 6-0 that often. So, you can rest assured that he's not going to sieve your points. He's going to play most of the games. I think they'll get more clean sheets than you think against some of the poorer sides. He doesn't pick many bonus points up because he's not the sort of flashy keeper that will catch the eye. So, but not a bad backup one to have if they've got a really easy matchup or an easier matchup, which they might be a low-scoring affair. Linder at Mulder's worth considering. I expect his points tally will be close to McDermott as well. But again, he's 6 million, so it's 1 million more. It's an interesting one. Larsen Quaresay, I think Vålerenga might not get as many as that this year. Same with Rosbach at Odd. I don't think he's going to get quite as many. Even Barley's an interesting one. They got 88 points for Ranham last year, even though they conceded more shots than anyone else on goal. 50 goals conceded as well, but he makes a lot of saves. But I just think they're going to struggle an awful lot. I don't think they'll get many clean sheets. So, whether he can get 88 points again, I don't know. Probably not. It's probably going to be more like the 70 mark. But he is cheap at 4.5 million. Holman Johansson, where last year was at a different club, now he's at Brann. His points tally will probably be very similar to what Linder is at Mulder, I think. Brann do keep quite a few clean sheets. So, yeah, if I had to, it's a toss-up between those two, really. There's not an awful lot of other keepers that I'll be thinking about getting. Vazjutin at Salzburg will be the first choice for for a whole season, which means he should get more points this time around. But I'm not sure their defence is as good as, say, Brann or Mold or someone like that. There's not a lot else, really. The new goalkeeper at Haugesund, Gostomski, is perhaps a bit of a wild card in this market if they turn out to be solid at the back. And Uspo is an interesting one at Rosenborg. He's the number 2 there. So if Hansen does go down injured, you definitely want to get Uspo into your lineup, because he'd be a nice cheap option there if Hansen did go down injured with anything significant. Not an awful lot else to mention here at all, actually. Goalkeeping situation. Look out for potentially some cheap number 2s that might get into the lineup. Off the top of my head, there might be one at Mjøndalen for this regard. Fejlund is, I know he's not any cheaper, but they've got 2 keepers who are basically out for the whole year. Makani is certainly, I think maybe August for him. Fejlund is going to be the starting keeper there. But yeah, you just got to look around. Sometimes a keeper gets injured. If it's a keeper at a significant club, then watch out. Try and get the backup keeper on a cheap price. But at the moment, there's no one really on the top of my head that I can think of who's going to be at a cheap price in that regard at all. So, yeah, let's move on to defenders. And, well, this is interesting. Last year, of course, the highest scoring defender was Stolas at Haugesund. And that's a lot of points. And the main reason, because he had a lot of assists and he chipped in with quite a few goals as well. So if you look at his points, yeah, 8 assists, 4 goals. They had 12 clean sheets. Well, that might go down this year. I don't know. I don't think that it's going to be going down that much for Haugesund, but 12 is asking an awful lot. So, and he only got 9 bonus points despite those great stats. So that's a little bit worrying for me. He's not a magnet for bonus points. I wouldn't go for him this year. I couldn't even be sure he gets 100 points, to be honest with you, let alone 150. 6.5 million seems a little bit too much. Vito Wormgård, he's in my team. Big centre back for Brann. 53% of people own him, I do believe. And it's no surprise why, because he's going to get points in so many different ways. Brann, 12 clean sheets last year for Brann. They're probably going to get something similar again, and they don't concede many goals. He could be on penalty duty for Brann. He was last year in the first half of the year, and he just smacks them away with power usually. And so I think he's every chance he could be on spot kick duty again this term. And he's a threat from set pieces. Chipped in with 2 assists last year somehow as well. I wouldn't be so sure he's going to get any of those. But 17 bonus points. If he has a good game, he's going to get at least 1 bonus point from the pundits because he stands out like a sore thumb. So 6.5 million, it's a no-brainer for me. Get him in your team. Could even be captain material, to be honest with you. Espen Ruud's a right back at Odd. I don't think he's going to score as many points this year. He had a mad goal-scoring run at the back end of 2018, but it's asking a lot for him to reach those heights again. Does have his upside, though. The team itself will have their share of clean sheets, but I just don't think he's going to contribute as much offensively. Berger Melling, it's definitely someone I'll be looking to get into my side after the double game week, because he's in terms of raw points potential, I think he's probably going to get more than anyone else this year if he chips in with goals. He's going to get a Rosenborg's clean sheets, which will be about a dozen. Like again, eight assists last season, which could even increase if he's given a better role in the offense. And 1 goal, I would expect he's going to improve on that. I think he can get 3 or 4 goals, maybe even 5 this year, because he'll be coming in at the back post, hopefully, when they're bombing forward, and he'll give him opportunities. 14 bonus points. He'll pick plenty of bonus points up as well. Berger Melling is someone you definitely want in your side, really. But I'm personally waiting until after the double game week. I'm just trying to fill my team with Brann, Mulder, and Vålerenga players at the moment, as much as I can, really. But yeah, I'll be getting Melling in my side. Reginiussen is at Rosenborg, and I think you've got to compare him to Wormgård, really. I mean, in terms of defence, they're just as good as each other, really. Probably Reginiussen is a notch better, but he's not such a big goal threat, in my opinion, as Wormgård. He's not going to be on penalties for a start, so I would always lean towards Wormgård here. Bjørnbæk is an interesting pick for Molde. I've seen a lot of people getting him in their side, and with good reason as well. I mean, he's moved from Buda Glimt. Look at last year for Björnbach. He only was in a side that kept 5 clean sheets. Here, he scored 4 goals, and that is because he's a big threat from set pieces. He even takes the odd free kick, actually. And he picked up a lot of bonus points in that Glimt side. Whether or not he'll get as many this year because Molde are full of stars is a bit more questionable. But yeah, I think for 6 million, you've got to look to get him in your side. He's starting the year doubtful with an injury. So I've not got him in my side in week 1. I might look to add him for week 2, potentially, with a double game week. But down the line, yeah, he'd be a solid option for you. Other guys to mention from last year, I mean, I wouldn't be going Hedenstad at Rosenborg. I think his points tally is going to go down. Acosta at Brann isn't quite such a... He does score the odd goal, but he's not quite the threat of the likes of Reginiussen, Bermgård for bonus points. Harold Seid has moved clubs to Molde, and he could go very well at right back. 5.5 million. Not a bad little price there for him. On the cheaper ones, I've just took a punt at the moment on Solberg Olsen at Mjøndalen because I think there's a chance he could maybe just chip in with an assist or 2. But to be honest, he's probably not going to be starting for me very often. He's just in there at the moment on the price, really, because it's a bit low. And I've got Teniste in my side, right back at Brann, just for the first 2 game days, really, because I think they're going to keep clean sheets in that double match day. And he's a solid option. Chips in with the odd assist as well every now and then, but long-term down the line, he's probably not what you want in your team. He's all right, though. If you're looking for really cheap defenders, I mean, there'll be some bargains out there, but a lot depends who's going to start. It's a lot of question marks at the start of the season. Who's that going to happen for, really? Prices. So look at some of the more expensive guys that we've not mentioned yet. I mean, there's a couple more brand defenders here, Christensen and Grogo. They're competing for 1 spot at left back. So, I mean, that could be rotation there. Rismark's another brand defender who's competing for a spot at centre back. I wouldn't be going to many Haugesund defenders myself because I think their clean sheets record's going to go downhill. So I wouldn't be looking at getting any Haugesund defenders in. A bit overpriced, if you ask me. Reese is an interesting one, odd. He sometimes plays on the wing, so you could get some points out of him, potentially. In fact, he even played a match up front last year. Actually, but only 1 goal scored and 3 assists, so you want a bit more out of him, really. So, but he's a player to keep an eye on. It depends what position he's playing in that odd team. So keep your eye on Risa. I say these are more expensive players. Let's move to the second list. Now we're down to 5 million players. And, you know, you're looking for guys really. The potential to score points from goals, assists, bonus points, clean sheets, obviously. Again, with Sarpsborg defenders, they've got a lot of guys that might rotate a bit. Are Sarpsborg really going to keep that many clean sheets as well compared to like Brann, Rosenborg and Molde? I'm a bit doubtful, really. Nielsen at Tromsø, he plays in midfield, but more of a defensive-minded midfield. So his points won't be as much as you want. But he's, again, another one to keep an eye on because he might end up playing left wing-back. Did score 3 goals last year, along with 3 assists. And as I say, moving, he's now classed as a defender. I don't know what he was classed as last year, whether he was a defender or a midfielder. But while for a cheap price, he could go well. Again, though, in the minute he's starting the season injured, so you maybe want to wait a few weeks. I've got Sam Adekugbe in my side at the moment, Vålerenga, mostly because of this double game week I mentioned. His stats last year aren't great. He only had 1 assist and no goals, but I think he can improve on that. I've just got a feeling he can improve on that, and Vålerenga should keep a few clean sheets as well to be one of the more dominant teams. I'm not probably going to keep him in the side for that much longer, though. Buda Glimt might, as I mentioned, I've got the keeper from Glimt, but there's not really anyone that stands out in terms of, you know, points that they're going to bomb forward and get goals or assists. It'd be more on defensive points. really. And looking down my list, there's not really too many that stand out. Last year, Ranheim had a guy called Eric Turner, who was a winger. I had him in my team a lot, but it looks like they've moved into a midfielder now. So that's what it's all about. Watch out for players that are playing out of position. There will be guys on this list who are on the wings sometimes, and if they end up getting a regular spot on those wings, then get them in your team because they've got much more chance of getting points. Scoring goals. If a defender scores you a goal, it's worth its weight in gold. So keep your eye out there, and this is what I'll be keeping advising you as the season goes on. So that's the defenders we've mentioned there. I'm going to go to midfielders now. Let's see who got the highest midfielders last year, and that was David Akintola at Haugesund. He's moved to Rosenborg, and to be honest, he's got every chance of getting a similar amount of points there. He absolutely nailed it last year in a worse team. So in theory, he should go better. 9 goals, 7 assists, a lot of bonus points. It's just a question: is he going to get rotated much, especially during the summer when they're in the Champions League qualifiers, and they've got a lot more talented options. But he's moved with the manager from Haugesund, so I think he's going to be one of the main favourites. I certainly wouldn't put off anyone getting Akintola in your team. Forget Rolanson. The only reason he scored so many points last year because he was classified as a defender and he played on the wing. So forget him at Bra. I can't see him getting anywhere near as many points this year. Hestad at Molde, yeah, a strong option to consider. I mean, these Molde midfielders, there's so many good ones to pick from. I mean, I've got Magnus Wolff-Eikrem in my team. And the reason I've got him, I'm going to come to him in a minute when we go to price, because his stats were great. But you could easily make a case for Ulland Andersen, Orsnes, Hestad. I mean, Ulland Andersen starting the year a little bit underprepared, so I wouldn't be getting him in your team straight away. But, watch out for injuries, watch out who's getting the start. Sometimes they rotated around a bit, but there's good options there. Eric Turner, I mentioned him. I wouldn't get him in your side this year because, as I say, he was classified as a defender last season, and his points tally is going to go down because now he's classified as that midfielder. Mads Reginiussen is a bit of an interesting pick at Ranheim, easily their best player. Did very well for them. Can he match his 9 goals from last year? The 19 bonus points. I think he'd do well to get 120 points, but he is cheap at 7.5 million. It's not a bad price, really, compared to some of the big boys. So I wouldn't dismiss Reginiussen. Rashani at odd. He plays out on the wing, sometimes up front a lot. He can get you some goals, Rashani. 7 last year. Another one. Worth having a look at him. If he's a streaky player, though, so he goes in and out of form. 8 million, it's not a bad price tag. Some might think a little bit high. It's about right for me. Christopher Luckberg might not be getting enough minutes at Brad. So, certainly initially. So I wouldn't be looking at him. Bård Finner, probably a little bit too expensive for Vålerenga, even though, he will get you goals sometimes. I've gone with Leuni at Bodø Glimt. Good assist provider. 8 assists last year. And that's what stands out. He put some really good crosses in, and it's the same again. I think they have lost the target man up front, so he might not get as many assists. But he's a player I like, and he's cheap at 6.5 million. That's the thing. He stands out, so he gets a few bonus points as well. A nice price on the lower end for me. I will talk about Trippic in a minute. I mean, I have took a few really cheap midfielders, haven't I? Actually, in that regard, but I'm just talking about the ones who did well last year. Nielsen at Haugesund, that surprises me. He's starting the season injured, I think. I'm not sure, but I've talked about Haugesund. I'm a bit wary about taking their players because they did well last year. They overachieved a bit for me. Mike Jensen could be a sleeper, for Rosenborg if he gets going, but he's just playing more deeper role for my liking. If he was playing more advanced, he'd be getting more goals and more assists. He didn't have a single assist last year in the Eliteserien. Surely he's going to get more than that this time. But that deeper role does concern me. Keep your eye on him. Gilbert Coombson at Brann. He should get points on the wing as well. It's not a bad price, potentially. But you need more production out of him. I'm not 100% sure we'll get them. I've gone with Azuka at Vålerenga because I just think this guy could explode onto the scene. He's got a lot of potential. I mean, those 3 goals, 5 assists, 12 bonus points. Well, I think all of those stats have potential to go up for Azuki. I always struggle with this pronunciation, but definitely a player to consider. Explosive sort of attacker, and he's got better weapons around him as well, which might help. So yeah, that's all the guys who got 100 points last year. Let's have a look at some of the prices and maybe some new signings as well. Magnus Wolf-Eichram, I mean, you got to get him for me in your team. I'm going to captain him most weeks, I think, in my season. He only played 985 minutes, but 4 goals, 9 assists, 16 bonus points. Ridiculous amount of stats. If he stays fit, he's going to be an absolute monster for Mulder this year, because I think he'll play most of the games as well. They won't rest him that often. It's a no-brainer for me to get Magnus Wolf-Eichram in your team. How many have actually picked him? I didn't look. Must be a high percentage. 16% are in him. Is it the price tag that's putting the people off? As far as I'm concerned, he's well worth paying for at that price. Get him in your team. I wouldn't be going near Paul-Andre Helen because he gets injured far too often. Great player, but he doesn't stay fit enough for my liking. Samuel Adegbenro could go really well. He was injured most of the last season. But the doubt is he going to play enough minutes? Just keep your eye on it. If he's getting in a good run of form and he's starting all the time, he could go really well for 10 million. We've talked about actually Hagen at Brann. Interesting player, but I just don't think there's enough goals in him. Smadderson at Lillestrøm. I'm probably someone I'll be looking to get in my team at some point this year. He came in mid-season for them. Did really well, just 1,129 minutes, 7 goals. He's on penalties, he'll be on set pieces, and his nickname's Smaradona, I think. And he could definitely get quite a few points for you. 9 million, a little bit, probably about fair, but I'd be looking at him. Yermund Assen will probably be a popular pick, I think. Well, no, only 7.2%. I'm not sure he's going to have such a big year with a lot of quality players battling for position. I've heard good things about this Charlotte at Vålerenga, but until I see it on the field in actual matches, competitive matches, I'm going to leave him alone. I mentioned Rashani here. Some of these big signing players, Samuelson, a young talent from Haugesund. I mentioned him on the season preview podcast. He could be a live wire and do quite well. Again, I want to see more. I want to see how he starts the season, though, before I commit to him. In terms of the cheap prices, Trippic, I've gone with Trippic at Viking. And let's see if we can get him. He had quite a lot of assists last year in the Obos-ligaen. Bit of a left field choice from me here because it's much harder, obviously, in the top tier. But I saw some of his play in 2018. And I think certainly against some of the crapper teams, he could go well. So a cheap price. And I got Mikkel Ingebrigtsen at Tromsø. A player, I've got a bit of a soft spot for this guy. I've got to be honest with you. So, feel free to ignore me on Ingebrigtsen. But he's a good player if he gets in the right sort of position. He's starting the season as one of the few fit attackers in the Tromsø team, which might be a good or a bad thing. He rejoined them mid-season in 2018. But if he returns to his sort of 2017 form, remember he only played 1,700 minutes there, 8 goals. If he can get back to that sort of level, that 5.5 million is going to be an absolute steal for me, Mikkel Ingebrigtsen, because he's going to play up front sometimes. At the start of the season, he might be the striker for them. So, yeah, definitely a player for me on the cheap side to look out for. I forgot to see how many have actually picked him up. 2%. He could be a sleeper, Mikkel Ingebrigtsen at Tromsø there. He's probably my cheap midfield pick, if you like. But hopefully giving you some good ideas there about the midfielders. Go to the strikers. Again, points last year. Frank Bolly was the top scorer in the league by a million miles. 153 points. That's because he scored so many goals. But is the Stabæk attack going to be as good this year without Umoy Wanfo, who's gone? He was a great foil for Frank Bolly. So I'm not sure. Bolly will get goals, don't get me wrong. And if he was a bit cheaper than 10 million, I would be all over him, I think. But and it's asking a lot for him to have such an explosive impact he had. Most of his goals were in the second half of the season, though. I expect him to get 10 or 12. You know, if he gets more than that, then fair play to him. I wouldn't be looking to pay a premium on Bolly unless it looks like he's really on shit hot form again. Myself, I've got Bamba in my team at Bran. Don't think I'm going to keep him in my side for long, but I want him in for that double game week because someone's got to score the goals for Bran in that double game week. He's got 2 home matches there against Strømsgodset and Christiansen. I could see him getting a goal or 2 in that game week, which means, you know, especially if you go with the double points for strikers that week, it could be handy. In terms of actual points, a lot of his points were scored for Christiansen last year, remember? So it's not necessarily a banker to start every game for Bran, but 9.5 million, I was going to start with him. And Uwe on my one fight is a bit of a no-brainer, really, at Molde. I think when this was priced up, he was a Stabæk player, but now he's obviously at Molde, 41% getting him. They've got that double game week as well. Get him in your side because he scores. He'll get goals if he's starting games, and a cheap price that could easily go up that price, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about Jürgen Strand Larsen in a minute, but some of these other strikers, Len Olsen should go well at Lillestrøm. Whether or not he gets as many points this year, I'm not sure. Marcus Pedersen starting the year a little bit unfit at Godse. He's a bit overpriced for me. Just watch it. Watch his form. When he gets hot, that might be the time to buy low on him. Šalovik's moved to Sarpsborg. Too much competition for striking there for me. But he is cheap at 8 million. Bendik Bay got 98 points this late for Christiansen. They've got a double game week coming up. He could be a cheap option. 15% have got him. He can come up with the odd decent goal, actually. Wouldn't put people off by at all. I might even bring him in for that double game week. Replace Strand Larsen for a week. Bentner. The problem with the Rosenborg strikers is rotation. They don't always play enough minutes for what you want. Bentner, Söderlund, they're going to have some great games, but it's a lot of money for players that might be on the bench too often. Castrati, I was only ruled out of the game the first week. Cheap price at Christiansen. Watch out for him when he gets fit. Bruno Espejord, watch out for him when he gets fit at Tromsø as well. But these guys can go down a bit. Carlson at Ranheim, I don't expect will go as well. Moss, watch out if Strømsgodset are going to play with 2 up front or 1 up front. And if it's only 1 up front, he probably loses out to Pedersen. But I like Moss. If he's getting regular game weeks and scoring, yes, he's 9.5 million, but he'll get you goals. In terms of prices, let's have a look at some of the most expensive prices. I wouldn't be going for Lecky James now that Ori Moenfoy's moved to Molde, and he's doubtful for the first week anyway. Williamson at Vålerenga looks a bit overpriced. Another player that can get injured very, very easily, even though he could have a good year. I'd be doubtful whether he lasts. Well, he'll go down with something, some sort of niggle at some point. A lot of talk about this guy, Jürgen Strand Larsen at Sarpsborg. Very cheap player. 18% have got him. It's because he scored 20 goals in pre-season. It's no secret, this guy. You've probably got to get him in your side because I'd imagine after game week 1, that 6.5 million probably goes up, doesn't it? Just make a quick book there. I might look to drop him for game week 2. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm starting him off in my side because I just think they might raise his price after week 1 because it's so obvious he might be undervalued there. What else have we got at big prices for strikers? Go down the list. Try to think of some. Tommy Hurland might be popular at Viking. I've seen some people saying he's not got the legs anymore. 16% have got him, but he scored 21 goals in the Obos League again last year. So he's a fox in the box who might do okay. I wouldn't be going for Berven odd. They're 6.5 million. I mean, there's Heron could be worth looking at Bodø Glimt. If he's at the moment, he's going to be probably the starting striker for them. Move down the list. I mean, not an awful lot stands out here right now, but some of these guys will be on the cheap price, end up getting in the lineup. So keep your eye on these guys. There's always someone breaking through in this league. So got to keep your eyes peeled. Now, let's just talk about the 3 bonus, the chips that you got. You got 3. You got the Rich Uncle, Spiss Rush, and 2 captains. Well, the game week 2 is a double game week. There's 2 extra matches midweek after that. Mulder are playing against, I forget who they're playing. Let's have a look, see information. Yeah, they got Starbeck at home and Vålerenga at home in that double game week. 2 very favourable fixtures, really. Even Vålerenga won't be that bad. 2 home games, though. Brann have got 2 home games as well. They're against Strømsgodset and Kristiansund. So, obviously, Kristiansund have got a couple of games, and so have Vålerenga. Vålerenga's 2 games that week. Kristiansund away and Mulder away. Yeah, away games, but they could get things at Kristiansund and Mulder. Well, that's a tough fixture for them, but at least it's a game. If people perform well in that game, they'll be getting points. Kristiansund have got their 2 games, obviously home against Vålerenga, which is not a bad game to have, and then Brann away, but that's a tough one. But they could maybe keep a clean sheet or something. In fact, they won there a couple of years ago in impressive fashion. But I think that week you've got to play either the Spiss Rush, which is all 3 of your strikers. You definitely play, obviously, or you play all 3 up front that week. 3 of your strikers get double points that week. And I think that's the best way to play that particular chip in match day 2. Load it up with strikers from, well, any of those 4 teams, but specifically by Mulder and Brann, perhaps, or Mulder and Vålerenga strikers that week. And, they've got 2 matches to pick up points, hopefully. And then whatever they get is doubled. So I think it's a great chance to pick up, use that Spiss Rush in game week 2. Alternatively, you could have 2 captains, of course, and pick 2 players in those. You could have maybe Magnus Wolf Eikram, or, some really key players in those sides that you think is going to have a monstrous 2 games. The Rich Uncle chip is a new one this year. They used to have Park the Bus. I used the Park the Bus one last year on this double game week, and I had like clean sheets got galore, and I got tons of points, but they've got rid of that. The Rich Uncle chip, I think you can basically, it's a one-off week where you can spend as much money as you want on a team. I don't know if there's limitations with, I don't know if you can have like 11 players from the same club or not, but you can spend as much money as you want for 1 week. Like you could have a 10 million, 4 10 million strike, 3 10 million strikers, the highest expensive midfielders, etc., for 1 week. Which again, you could look at using that for this week too, I suppose, get the best players in there. But it's worth saying none of them, it doesn't give that option for the double points. If you can nail 3 strikers who have fantastic matches in that double game week, I think that's why I'd go with the Spiss Rusher and keep the Rich Uncle for later in the year, perhaps when it's obvious that you really need like a points boost. Keep that one in the bag. But my captain's going to be Magnus Wolf Eikram. I reckon I'm going to have him captain quite a lot of the year. If not, I'll probably go with Vito Wormgård because he, especially in games that it looks like Brann are going to keep a clean sheet. So, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that and it gives you a bit of a few ideas. There's probably 1 or 2 better ones around on this, but, I'm growing into the fantasy role. I'm more of an analyst in terms of the league and the players themselves, but I know there's a big fantasy interest. So give me some positive feedback if you enjoyed it, or negative. I'm looking to improve. But we're going to do a few of these videos this year. So stay tuned. Thanks very much for listening.